Hello and good afternoon. I'm so glad you could join us today for our May session. Our discussion series takes place on the first Thursday of every month. And our moderator today is Roger Hutchison, who will be speaking with Dr. Catherine Meeks. Bethanie Baker Henderson, coordinator for the series based on the book, How to Heal Our Divides. And we're eagerly anticipating the next volume by Brian Elaine. It's called How to Heal Our Divides, An Abundance of Opportunities. It will be due out May 24th. So look forward to this new book and support this book. It's about important work. For today, we'll have a discussion and our audience will be able to put questions in our Q&A. And I'd like to introduce Roger. Roger is the #1 best-selling author and illustrator of 7 books, including The Painting Table, My Favorite Color is Blue, Sometimes, Face is a Love Story, El Mejor Dia, the Spanish translation of The Very Best Day, The Way of Love for Children, and Come In, Come In. Following the shootings at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut, Roger had the privilege of painting with children who had witnessed the tragic event. The experience profoundly affected him and convinced him to serve those who grieve with his writing and art. Roger received the Governor's Order of the Silver Crescent Award in 2014. The Order of Silver Crescent is South Carolina's highest civilian honor for exemplary performance, contribution, and achievement within the community. There's prayerful poetry woven through Roger's work, a gentle reverence in his tone and posture toward the heartbroken. It's Roger's ambition to use art, color, and poetic language to communicate love, promote healing, and hope in today's hurting world. Roger serves as the Director of Christian Formation and Parish Life at Palmer Memorial Episcopal Church in Houston, Texas, and is a member of the National Alliance of Grieving Children and Society of Children Book Writers and Illustrators. Roger lives with his wife and daughter just outside Texas. And to learn more about Roger, you can follow his story and find him on Instagram at Roger Hutchison Books. Thank you, Roger, for joining us today.
Oh, gosh, that was a lot. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. Thrilled to be here. You ready to get going, huh?
We are ready.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Well, I am thrilled to be here, honored to be invited by Brian and Bethany. Thank you on behalf of this amazing resource, this amazing book. And I'm especially excited. I was given a list of names. Who would you be interested in talking with? And there was no question. As soon as I saw Dr. Meeks' name on the list, I knew that's who I wanted to talk to, mainly because we're friends and I don't get to see her very often. And it's great to be able to do this. What I'm going to do today is, of course, as you know, talk about Dr. Meeks' contribution to how to heal our divides. And I want to first introduce you to Catherine Meeks and let you know who she is and a little bit about what she's about. I could go on for most of this webinar telling you who she is and what she's about. I want to just hear her. But what I will share is this. Dr. Catherine Meeks is the founding executive director of the Absalom Jones Episcopal Center for Racial Healing. And this is the big deal. She has been named a 2022 Presidential Award Lifetime Achievement Honoree. In addition, Dr. Meeks was awarded the President Joseph R. Biden Lifetime Achievement Award and the Presidential Volunteer Service Award Medal. Come on now. I'm getting to interview a presidential award winner. So no. If you were on a minute ago, one of the things I just said was if I could just sit at Dr. Meeks' feet and listen to her, that would be enough for me, the rest of my time. So she is a wonderful gift to our world. She is a voice that we need to hear and continue to hear. And because of her amazing work, we'll hear long after she's gone. And it is an important work. So Dr. Meeks, welcome.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all those kind words. And by the way, the award is to be conferred on the 26th of August. So
Excellent.
yeah.
Excellent. Well, congratulations. The other thing I can share just real quickly is this is just sort of a celebration. Dr. Meeks just had double hip surgery and I am thrilled to know that she is on the mend and feeling better and moving better than she has in years. And that's something I think we can all give thanks for.
Absolutely.
Certainly.
Yes.
So, well, I want to get started, Dr. Meeks, and with some questions. What I want to start with is in the book, in the piece that you contributed, Episcopal General Convention mandated that all leaders in the church had to participate in anti-racism training, and that commissions should be organized to make sure that the mandate was met. I really am interested in, I have my ideas, but I'm interested in what inspired this mandate. Was it a single event, or was this something that has been building?
Well, I think that was the outgrowth of a long-term understanding of the amount of racism that lives within the walls of our religious communities that brought us to this point. And the notion that somehow or another, we needed to get people not just doing these one-off events and thinking they're done with racism. So the convention thought that if they said if you're a leader in the church, basically that's the language says, if you're a leader in the church, you have to take they use the word anti-racism. I don't use that language, but they use that word you had to take an anti-racism workshop. And, but it's ludicrous because an anti-racism workshop doesn't do anything. It turned out to be a one-day workshop that people figured out how to do and kind of hold your nose and get through it, and then you're done. And so that was what we ended up with as a result of that mandate, that people either worked hard to get around it or figured out how to do it as with as little pain as possible.
Excellent. Thank you. Speaking on something you just said, you don't use the word anti-racism. So right. What is your language for that?
Well, I think it's very important to talk about what you are for rather than what you're against. And I don't know who's willing to say I'm for racism. I mean, so you should be against racism, period. That ought to be a given, particularly if you're somebody claiming to have any faith. I think racial healing is a much more welcoming term. I think it invites us to think about what does all that mean. I think it's we don't have to be against anything or anybody. We have to be for all of us getting well. And I think that's the work we are to engage as we talk about healing divides and dismantling racism and all that stuff. The bottom line is that we're trying to get to healing. We're trying to get to a place where we are a population of people that have figured out how to live on the planet like civilized folks instead of continuously trying to see if we can destroy one another. And so I'm always thinking that the language needs to be an invitation, have an invitation embedded in it to go deeper, to go further. And it also speaks to the understanding that we're not talking about doing an event here. We're talking about engaging on a path and a pilgrimage that's going to start from the moment you decided to engage it until you die. It's not going to end. There is no end point here. It is, and that's one of the biggest messages that I think we have been able to put out in terms of this work, because people so much misunderstand and think, well, if we just do these workshops and these book studies and these pilgrimages and watch these films, then we'll be ready to go. Well, no, you won't. You will just be ready to live and keep on working until you die, because that's how long it's going to take to get this work done. And that is about healing. That is about becoming the people God meant for us to be. And racism keeps us from doing that.
Thank you for that. There's so much of the language that we encounter is about anti, is about
Yeah.
against. And our world needs more healing language and healing experiences,
Mhm.
and not quick fixes,
Right.
because there's no such thing, especially in this realm. What we just talked about language, one of the things that came out of this is that folks were mandated to participate in this training. And the fact, and what, no surprise that many of these people became quite, I love how you put this, quite proficient at finding ways to avoid it.
They did.
Exactly.
Amazing.
And then you say an unfortunate spirit of negativity began to form around the anti-racism commission in general and the workshop sessions in particular. I think you've kind of already explained that, but I would love to know, one, how did you specifically get asked to lead this, to take this piece on, and the process of sort of changing the name over?
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing the audience should know is that I'm a retired professor of African American Studies and Women's Studies, and I taught for 34 years at the university level. And I've been doing this work for 50 years, but I taught for that long. And so my background is part of why I got asked to do this, is because that's where I've been living for so many years. The commission in the Diocese of Atlanta became defunct because the leaders of it were, first of all, using a very corporate model for doing the work, which is a big mistake. If you're working in the church, you ought to act like you're working in the church. And church work and corporate work are not the same thing. Corporation work are not the same thing. There is a place in the work that we do to engage the spirit, to remember who we are, and to call upon the God of the universe to help us to get this work done. And to leave that out, to come into a room and do a prayer and then go through a day of activities and do a prayer at the end does not get it if you're doing church work. There needs to be a different kind of commitment to the spirit and to God's leadership. And so people got to the point in this diocese where they quit going to the workshops, and the leaders decided, well, the remedy for that was that they needed 2 days to do it instead of one. I always think that's the funniest thing. You're doing something that doesn't work, and your remedy is that you need to do more of it, but it doesn't work. So that always fascinated me, that was their remedy. So there was a backlog of people, because you cannot be ordained in the Diocese of Atlanta if you haven't done this workshop. I mean, we actually put some teeth in the General Convention's resolution and said, if you don't do this workshop, you can't be ordained, you can't be on a vestry, you can't be on a search committee. And we are still sticking to that. I mean, and that's part of how we get so many people trained, because they know that they've got all these things to do, and that's a prerequisite. So there are all these people needing to have a training day, but no training days were scheduled. And the Bishop Alexander at the time was getting very antsy about, well, what are we going to do about this? And so I had gone to him already and said, I don't like the way this work is going in this diocese. And he said, well, I'll just put you on the commission. And I said, I wasn't asking you to put me on the commission. I said, we need to do something about the work. And he said, well, what I can do about it is give you a chance to be on the commission. And then once I was there, the chair decided that he was no longer interested in being the chair because he was really busy with his work at Emory University. And as he was going off, he asked if I'd be interested. And I said, yes, because I've been doing this work all these years. I knew how to do it. I knew how it needed to be done. And so it was hard, because I didn't really want to spend a big part of my life that I have spent now trying to help white people wake up to their woundedness as racist in the United States. But it was what God was asking me to do, and I said yes. And the first thing we did was reimagine the name. We went from being the Anti-Racism Commission to becoming the Beloved Community Commission for Dismantling Racism. Just changing our name and then deciding that this workshop day was going to be centered around the Eucharist, rather than this corporate model that had been being used all the time, completely transformed the work. The name change and zeroing in on the Eucharist and making the day about spiritual formation and helping people to begin to understand that this work is for the rest of your life. It's like everything else. It's like paying your pledge. It's like going for Eucharist week after week. It's the life that you have as a person of faith. This is a part of it. And that has been those are the two things that have had the most impact upon this work being reimagined and reinvigorated, I think.
I love it. And I love how your fingerprint is on all of that. I especially am moved by the idea of it being gathered around Eucharist. The fact that we are celebrating or marking with bread, the broken body of Christ, I think also to see the broken bodies of our siblings of color. I think it's an amazing way to send people forth. And for me,
and also Roger, for white people to see their own broken bodies.
Right, exactly.
Because that is something that gets so missed in this whole conversation. What you just said is so true. But there's this kind of sense of, well, but the people of color are the most broken. The truth is everybody is equally broken.
That's right.
And when we start realizing that more fully and completely and addressing it, then we become pilgrims looking for bandage closets rather than somebody that's kind of on the outside saying, oh, come, let me do this for you. No, we're all in this together trying to figure out if we can make any sense out of the craziness that's been created and handed down to us.
Thank you for that. And there's a country song that came out over COVID, and it's about a crowded table. And the words are just that they dream of a table where everybody is gathered around the table. Everybody has a seat at the fire. And it's just such a powerful, powerful image. Well, thank you for that. Another thing that sort of moved me in your words is this, when you said it's very easy to see the day's workshop more as a chore that had to be completed in order to serve in a particular capacity, rather than seeing it, and this is so key, of being a part of one's ongoing spiritual formation.
Yes.
So talk about a little bit about that, sort of how it's different. We've talked about it a little bit already, but when you're talking about spiritual formation, forming a Christian, forming a person of faith, talk about what you mean in that.
I've been stunned, literally stunned, by the priests and the bishops that have said to me, until we heard you talk about this work as spiritual formation, we never heard that language used to describe it. It's stunning to me, because how else would you see this? This is a part of getting, God sent us here to the earth to do something and had something in mind for us. And we are to become who God wants us to be, and getting rid of racist constructs that separate us is a part of the work we have to do in order to be ready to do the work God wants us to do. So your whole life is about being formed as God wants you to be formed. That's why we read scripture. That's why we go to church. That's why we give service. That's why we do the things we do, is because we are allowing God to remake us in God's image. Isn't that right? I mean, isn't that what the journey with God is about, what spiritual formation is about? You cannot do that with racist constrictions separating you. I mean, they have to go. That's just how it is. Everything that separates us from being in that space the way God wants us to be has to go. So then when you come and spend a day looking at the history, talking about it, talking about the wounds, confessing, looking at yourself, and looking at all the things that need to be looked at, looking at how the church is failing or not failing, and what needs to be done in the communities, whatever the workshop is that you're engaging, you are doing a little bit more to say yes to God's image of who you were put here to be. So it's a part of your ongoing journey of becoming the person that God has imagined you to be. If you look at it that way, you get over thinking you have achieved some great big thing at the end of the day. You know that what you've done is just kind of taken a minute and put a parenthesis, and you within that parenthesis looking at a few things today that's going to help you in this long journey that you're on. And so we stop thinking we've read these many books and had these many conversations. So why are we still talking about race? How many times have I heard people, particularly white and black and brown people, I'm tired of talking about race. We've talked about it enough. We should be done. No, you'll be done when you die. That's when you get done. And so when you begin to understand that, then you get that out of your system. So you now can live your life up against, I got to look at these places where I'm still being a bigot. I got to look at how I'm being prejudiced. All of us have our prejudices that need to be interrogated. And I'm open to watching myself and seeing these places where I'm ready to shut somebody out or dismiss somebody on the basis of prejudice rather than anything that's concrete. And that's the journey forever till we die, because no matter how much of that we uncover, there's still more to uncover. Right. So and so when you start seeing it that way, it's spiritual formation, it's a lifetime journey, then all the things you're doing is a part of the process. And you can enjoy it in a way, actually, because you're discovering parts of yourself and you're becoming well, and it's empowering and inspiring and enlightening. And these are words that people have used to describe our work, because they came to the meeting expecting to be beaten up, mostly white people and sometimes black and brown people, to be beaten up and made to feel bad. And they have left realizing at the end of the day that it was inspiring and helpful, and they feel encouraged to keep going and getting deeper into their journey. And that's the way it needs to be.
Thank you for that. I live in Texas. I live here in Houston. Houston is it's quite a progressive community. It's one of the most diverse cities in the nation, or the most diverse city in the nation, and really a glimpse of what the country as a whole is going to eventually look like. That being said, here at Palmer, we can have these conversations. We can listen. We can invite. We had Annette Gordon-Reed join us. We've had other folk. We've had you join us. We've listened to. We had Joy Harjo, Native American poet laureate of the United States. She joined us for a presentation. We're listening. We're part of these conversations. I think about the communities, and you're in Georgia, so you understand. Those smaller churches, those smaller communities, those communities that might be not as close to a city like Houston or Atlanta. How do we begin those conversations? How can I support communities like that? Where do I begin?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and it's a question that, as I've talked to folks in rural Mississippi, in rural Georgia, rural South Carolina, where there's the priests that are trying to start things or experience a lot of isolation within their parishes and within the larger community, because folks are not, well, we don't have a problem with race, primarily because there are no black folks here. That's the reason they think they don't have a problem. So I think that you have to start by approaching this from the position of what's going on in your life. Is your life, do you feel that you're really doing what you need to be doing? What are the things that hang you up from feeling that you are really on the path that God wants you on? Can you get people to start telling their stories? Where is the brokenness? Where are the places in you that you feel like something's just not quite right? Those conversations, storytelling works everywhere on the planet, as you know. So doesn't matter. You get people to start telling their stories, start talking about their memories, and they start remembering stuff that they've totally repressed. You don't come into the rural church in Georgia or Texas or any place else with the autobiography of Malcolm X for them to read. I mean, that would be a mistake. You need to come in with, who are you here? What are the things that separate you, first of all, from each other, from the people that sit across the pew from you, who look like you? What do you know about them? How do you share in their lives? What are the barriers that keep you from reaching out to somebody? So you got to really pay good attention to where the people are that are sitting in front of you. And you've got to be real careful to always be loving and kind.
Right. And that's what I've learned from you is, you could swoop in and try to, there's no quick fix. And I love that you keep saying, you do this until you die. So at least I know I've got my work. I hope for a long time that I'm working on this. I love the idea of telling stories. I love the idea of it not being just even verbal stories. Here at Palmer, we're doing things with art. We're doing things with music. We're doing, we even for stewardship, this about a year ago, instead of doing a pledge card, we had we sent out recipe cards. And so basically we had everybody, what ingredient can you contribute to this great recipe, to this great celebration? And it was really, really fun. And then we invited people to send a real recipe because people were at home and they were cooking again. And so what it did is it allowed us to get to know, one, what people were eating, but two, it was history. And people's stories. And it was a wonderful way to hear that. I guess another piece that I want to, I'm doing a little quick time check here. Good. I read in this piece, you were talking about how, all these guests came to Atlanta when when you kicked off the event. I'd like to hear a little bit about that experience. But what I'm really interested in, tell me about you had folks from West Africa and you had folks from all over. I'd love to know about that event and how they ended up in that space as well.
Well, the event that you're referring to was the opening celebration for the Absalom Jones Center for Racial Healing. And I think the audience would be happy to know, perhaps many people have read this piece and know it already, but that we because of the way our work was transformed by those changes that I've been describing, we morphed into outgrowing ourselves as a commission. We were a commission of 15 volunteers that I was chairing, and we became a group of people that folks were calling us from around the country saying, can we come and visit you? Can you help us imagine the training day, which was kind of embarrassing because we were just volunteers in the Diocese of Atlanta trying to do our work here. And so the Bishop Rob said to me, you all have outgrown yourselves as a commission. And I said, you're right. And so he and I went to the presiding bishop and said, we would like to talk with you about imagining a center that would be a resource for the church, that would offer what we've been doing in Atlanta. We would expand that. We would try to, learn, engage across the whole Episcopal communion to share what we have learned and what we're doing. And Bishop Michael said yes, which was a delightful moment. And we got amazing support. And October 17th, 2017, we opened the Absalom Jones Center. And Bishop Ada Bafo, who is the bishop in the Diocese of in Ghana, came. That's why we had West Africans here. We have a sister diocese with them.
Okay.
And so Bishop Bafo it worked out. It was just so providential. It worked out that Bishop Bafo was in the country and he was able to come and be with us. So we had Bishop Bafo, Bishop Wright, and Bishop Michael all there that day for the opening of the center. That our little building, our little chapel holds 125 people. And we had at least 200 people. The fire marshal would have killed us, I guess, if they had been able to be there. There were people standing everywhere and outside. And it was so fabulous. and yet so frightening because we moved from being a commission to a center, and that's a great thing to do. But then once the dust settles, you say, okay, so now what do we do? What are we really, And basically, I was the only paid staff person, and I had an intern and a building with a lovely sign outside, and now an opportunity to make that into something. And we are now 5 years this year. We're 5 years old, and we have worked with 65 of the 99 dioceses in the Episcopal Church, including Latin America, and we have become an international entity in those 5 years. We've created a curriculum for young people from K through 12, and we've been coaching people around the country to do dismantling racism with this notion of spiritual formation. There's still a lot to do in that regard because a lot of people are not doing it at all, and then doing a whole bunch of other things that I don't think work nearly as well as just claiming who we are as people of faith and then diving into the work from that perspective. But I am so thrilled with the responses and support that have come to us over these 5 years. We have been so blessed, and people have just really stood up and talked about how important our work has been. We have people on pilgrimage all the time showing up at the center. Now that folks are getting back out a little bit after COVID, we have 4 or 5 different groups coming in the next little while. People just want to come and be in the space, and the space is very, very welcoming. We're across the street from Atlanta University Consortium, where the historically Black colleges of Morehouse and Spelman, Clark at Atlanta University, and Morris Brown are all located. Our street is called the Atlanta Student Movement Street, Atlanta Student Movement Boulevard, where the Atlanta Student Movement, where student-led desegregation of downtown Atlanta occurred. They organized and marched from there downtown. So we sit in this historical place with a community behind us that's in decay and a campus across the street from us that's in denial. And because universities are always in denial about the communities. They sit in communities, but they act like they sit in where there is no community. They don't do the work they need to do to engage the community. So we're trying to be a bridge between the campus community and the community that's behind us. And we have come up with we're doing an initiative called Locating Disappeared Black Communities in Atlanta. Oh, there are 27 Black communities, historically Black communities, that have been disappeared by gentrification. Sure. So we've named them all. We have found people who lived in those communities, and we're getting ready to do a resource guide that names all of them and describes them. And then we're going to do oral history collections with all of the folks, the people who live there. And those oral histories will be on our website. And we're going to place markers at where all those communities were, so that people come into Atlanta can drive around and see where these communities were. They can come to our website and listen to people tell stories about Johnsontown, which is now Lenox Square Mall. So, and if they go to Lenox Square Mall, they'll see the sign saying this used to be an African-American community called Johnsontown. And then they can listen to people talk from Johnsontown. This is directly related to healing. It will get us out into the Black community in a way that we haven't been. And we're going to engage students in the oral history process making. So the students will be sitting in the room with these older people listening to those stories, because we've got to do a better job imagining how we're going to be intergenerational. We've got to quit just trying to do racial healing with people that are 45 years old and older and expecting the other generations to catch up. That's not going to happen. So all we're doing is creating environments where we get a new version of racism, rather than bringing people. That's why we have a curriculum from kindergarten to 12th grade, because we need to start with babies. We need to start in nursery school working on this so that we train people to begin to understand that everybody's God's beloved child. So the center is that. I'm so excited about this project. I can hardly stand it. And I want to just say to people, if you get yourself in a space where you'll listen to the call that God will put out for you, you can trust that everything you need will be sent. So on the Tuesday of last week, I contracted with somebody to write this resource guide for us. The day after, someone that I spoke to at the beginning of the center's life about helping to fund us, who never gave us any money, sent me an email and said, if I were to give you $10,000, what would you do with it? And he had sold a painting that was done by a man who was a slave, and he's now distributing that money to groups that are doing things in the Black community. So the day after contracting for the Disappeared Communities Project, someone writes me offering to give us $10,000. And when I spoke to him and said, this is what we would do, he said, that is an amazing project. And so he's funding it.
Oh my gosh.
So you see. And that is how this center operates. You know, people said to me, well, if you would tone down the language a little bit, you might get more money. And I said, well, I don't want the money. I don't want any money that's got to come on the basis of us lying about who we are. You know, we are who we are. This is what we are doing. And if that doesn't catch your imagination, you need to go find the place where you need to give your money, because we're not it. And if the Lord ever decides that the Lord's not going to take care of us, then we will go out of business.
Right.
But until then, we will be faithful, and we will keep being a brave space where we tell the truth.
Oh, I need you in my head all the time. That's what I need. I guess what I want to talk about a little bit is COVID time. You know, you talk about the center being such a place people come. Your location, placement in the community, all of those things that ended. You know, I talked to you. We had you scheduled to come to Palmer. And right around that time, we ended up having to say, nope, we've got to cancel that. That was at the point when we were trying to, do we do it? Do we not do it? Do we do it? You know, and then we decided, of course, we're not going to do it. We'll get you back another time. And then we had you on Zoom. So I'd love to know, certainly things regarding racism didn't slow down during the COVID time. Some of our most visible moments happened during that time. And so I'd love to know more how that went for you. How did your life change in that process?
So I was pretty much a technology bigot that, you know, don't tell me that you can do racial healing work through technology. People need to be in the room with each other. And I still do believe that is important. But on March the 9th, the university shut down and sent everybody home. And then we said, well, I mean, we're not going to sit here by ourselves. What are we going to do? So we closed our doors. We did not go back in that building for nearly 18 months. We did go back in the building, but we didn't have any programs in that building. So I came home with the understanding that I've got a center to save or close, either whatever. And I have this lovely son who is an amazing technocrat when it comes to technology, and a young in Easton Davis, who's the canon for communications in our diocese. And I said, y'all got to help me figure this out. So I got up to speed with Zoom. I learned how to make videos on the phone. I now can just sit and make a video and send it to somebody. They're so proud of me because they didn't think that I was at the time 74 years old. They didn't think I was going to do all that. They did not know how much I am willing to say whatever it takes is what we will do. So we went from being this on-site place to being this place that we have done close to 70 programs online, and most of them are on YouTube. So we've created a whole resource library that we would have never had. We have a program catalog on our website, so somebody can come to the website and see all of the programs that we have done. We doubled our database. We doubled our revenue without doing anything. I mean, people came to our programs and people started giving us money. We have worked now all over the world. I mean, we've had programs with people from South America, from Canada, from the UK, from West Africa, because we're online, Australia, because we're online. I don't even know how they found us. So we've expanded. I mean, to think we doubled our database in this era, and all these things have happened because we were forced to change our ways. And so I said, COVID gave us an invitation and we said yes to it. Mm-hmm. It was horrible. And I hate that so many people lost their lives. But the only thing that can be a little bit redemptive is if you said yes to the invitation to do what you needed to do in the face of the new reality. And so that's what we did. And it has just left us in an amazing place. And so this past December, we outfitted our center so we can live stream all of our programs going forward. And we now can, from both the cafe and the chapel, we can live stream everything. We will continue, we will do that. We will have on-site things that will be live streamed, and because we do not want to lose the constituency that we have gained, so it's been an amazing blessing for us because we were willing to switch gears. And I think that every day, every month, every year, there doesn't have to be COVID. God is always asking us, giving us invitations. And some of them are easier to refuse than COVID was. And so we say, no, I don't want to do it because I don't want to change. I'm scared. The status quo is too comfortable and this will be too disruptive. And we don't do it. And we get to sit and die on the vine. And we could have died on the vine. And instead we said yes. And it's just been phenomenal to watch the doors that have opened and how we have grown. I am so thankful for that.
I have watched that from a distance. I get the emails. I would encourage everybody to get on your email list. The programs that are offered, you just had one or have one coming up talking about hair,
Yeah.
It's an
colorism. Yeah.
Yeah. Color. And so it's such a wide range of program offerings, resources. I love, as a Christian educator, I work with children ages, babies up to 99-year-old plus. And I love to know that resources are available. Resources like this Healing Our Divides book, resources that you are working on. I'd like to share with everybody that you do have another project that you are wrapping up right now. I'd love to, this is wonderful. We talked about this a little bit. You've got a book coming out called The Night is Long, but Light Comes in the Morning. And it is a book of meditations on racial healing. But it's not your typical book of meditations. Tell me a little bit about that.
So Church Publishing, bless their sweethearts, asked me some last year toward the end of the year, they wanted me to write a book for young people. And I said, no, I'm not conversant enough with their lives to write a book, but I would write a book. I would write this book. And they said, fine. So it's a book of every offering. It's 8 sections with 6 meditations in each section, and they range from 2 to 5 pages, dealing with many of the subjects that we don't want to talk about in dealing with race. Like when I finish this session, I'm going back to working on why integration was a huge failure. That gives you some flavor. Talking about reimagining policing and public safety, and talking about rage and how those topics that we skirt around or don't talk about at all, but hope that we can get to healing without dealing with them, and we can't. And what I'm doing in those short discussions is try to get people, get into this, think about it. I try to put some questions in and some little prompts to help people stay with it. It's, 3 to 5, maybe you can handle 3 to 5 pages if you can't handle a whole afternoon retreat on the topic.
Sure.
And to really think about it, and to try to see if we can begin to have conversations that are grounded in the kinds of truths that if we let the light shine on them, we would be able to get somewhere. There's a chapter called No Trespassing that talks about white people trespassing in Black space. There's a meditation called Invisibility Blues that looks at how Black and brown people are made invisible. There's a meditation that says, don't ever use the word, I don't see color. And there are 3 pages talking about how that's denigrating and what that's, so it's that kind of book.
Yeah, when you and I were talking about the book, you said, Roger, it's going to make people angry.
Yeah.
And then you said, but I'm not worried about that. I've got this, I've got this truth.
Well, I said some people aren't going to like me, and that's true. Because when I wrote a blog about trespassing, and I had some kind of funny reactions to it. We got to talk about what's the truth. I believe I've just wrote a chapter. A meditation called Brokenhearted. Brokenhearted is the only way we can do this work. Our hearts have to be broken because of the injury that has been done to all of us. And if we approach the work with brokenhearted humility, that is different from standing on the street corner with a baseball bat trying to knock somebody in the head to get them to become conscious. But I talk about my brother who died because he couldn't get medical care at 12 years old. It's called The System Killed My Brother. And how my father died when my brother died, but didn't die really until he was in his 70s. But it was a belated announcement of his earlier death because he never recovered from losing my brother. So I have carried that brokenheartedness with me for all my life, and will carry it to the grave into this work. And if we approach this work with that brokenheartedness, it saves us from haughtiness. It saves us from superiority, having a superior attitude. And so this book is being offered in that spirit, the spirit of brokenheartedness, as a remedy for the way to be on this path. I talk about the difference between being a fellow pilgrim as a white person in this work and being an ally. And there's no place for allies in this work. We need pilgrimage. We need folks to be on pilgrimage with us. We need to know we can count on you, that you're not, allyship is about making contracts. Pilgrimage is, being a pilgrim is a commitment that says, I'll be here for you. I can always decide the contract's too cumbersome and I'm tired of it and I'm going to go away. But if I said, I'm your fellow pilgrim sister, you can count on me. I'll walk on these coals with you. So this book is about trying to talk about all that.
Gosh, imagine a world, right, where we can do that together.
Yes.
And I thank you for your voice in that. I want to just turn it real quickly back to how we heal our divides. And, Brian has this amazing way to connect people and reach out to people and pull people into, we were just all saying that we all feel like we're friends and we've never met each other in person. I mean, I've met you, but Brian, and, it is an amazing thing. Why did you say yes to contributing to this book?
Well, in the first place, the title, how to heal our divides. I mean, good Lord, if we are so polarized, we talk all of the time about beloved community and racial reconciliation and healing. And we're so, in this country, we're so preoccupied with religion, and we're so polarized. We're so divided. We're so pitiful when it comes to this. So just the notion of, let's talk about what are some ways that healing can happen, and where around the country are the things happening that are speaking to that. So when that invitation came, that really caught my imagination. And I want to participate in anything that's trying to help us imagine the possibility of building bridges. We have, I say the longest journey you will ever take is from your head to your heart. Mm. That's the longest journey. And once you make that journey, you begin to know that you can make the journey outside to people that you have othered or you see as other. And it helps us to get over some of those fears. So this book embodies that with these lovely ways of folks sharing and all the things that are, housed there. And I'm so delighted to be a part of it. And I just think that that's a metaphorical kind of set of imagery, the healing our divide. But you start with healing the division inside yourself. And I'm completely committed to that whole business about the inner outer journey and getting well, people getting well and projecting then being well out into the world rather than projecting your brokenness into the world. When you're broken, you want everything to be broken. And when you get better, you can't tolerate the brokenness. So we've got to become a people that won't tolerate racism because we don't have brokenness inside of ourselves.
There's not another question that I can follow that with. I think that what you just shared is a wonderful way to leave us with that. I do want to ask if Brian or Bethany, do you have anything that you want to say or Catherine or ask?
There's somebody's hand up, looks like here.
Actually, it's a thumbs up. They gave you a thumbs up.
Oh, is that what that is?
That is what that is.
I do have a question, Catherine, about you say once you take the training, it's a lifelong journey. What are some of the things are there some practical things that you suggest in your training that people go out and do? Is it a mindset or just the awareness?
It is an invitation to open yourself to God's call on your life so you can become more capable of listening to what you are called to do going forward. I don't know what you need to do. I don't know. We train 25 people in 25 groups. So that's that many people every year. I don't know what those people are supposed to do. I'd be an idiot to try to tell them what to do. But what I do know is that you got to do something. And so we hope that this work is will help you. Now, we do ask, in the workshop itself, is there something that you did today that you are willing to replicate in your church? So if you're looking for what's the simple next step, you could replicate. We encourage people to pick something, a film that they saw or an activity or something that they would maybe be courageous enough to try to replicate. We'll encourage that. But beyond that, no, because what I want to encourage is organicity in this work. I want the work to grow out of what the Spirit is calling people to do, because that is the only way it's going to be sustainable. Otherwise, you're just trying to replicate what other folks are doing, and you're going to get burnt out and tired, and you're not going to do it forever. You might do it for a minute, but you're not going to do it long. But if it's your work, you then stay compelled to do it. You stay energized because you will continue to get that energy. And, at the beginning of COVID, after George Floyd's murder, I got so tired of people calling me up with, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? And my response was, sit down, take a deep breath. Sit down, take a deep breath, and find out what God is asking you to do. See what God is asking you to do.
I was one of those voices that contacted my friend. I thought, oh, she's my friend. She's not going to fuss at me. So I contacted Catherine and she said, just sit down, just listen. And she said, seriously, I don't know what to tell you to do next at Palmer. Mm-hmm. Only you can figure that out. And it really actually was a powerful, it really gave me, I don't know, it pulled me into action instead of just trying to say, okay, this is the way that I'm going to, this is an easy fix.
Yeah. The problem that people get into is that there's an answer out there somewhere and somebody just needs to tell me what it is. There's a prescription. If you give me the prescription and I get it done, it'll be done. The prescription is hidden in our hearts. and we've got to find it. We can see what people have done. Yeah, sure, you can use resources. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about the long-term, lifetime commitment has got to come from deep inside yourself.
Yeah.
And it may be, like I talk to people that are 85 and 90 years old, and they'll say, well, I'm old, I can't do anything. That's not true. We're connected by energy. You don't have to be anywhere. You can sit in your room and be a powerful force in the whole construct because of the ways in which you allow yourself to think, the ways in which you allow yourself to be open to the spirit. We got to quit putting God in the box that limits God to our pitiful little ways of seeing, because we think God can only see because that's all we can see. Well, God's bigger than us. That's the good news.
That is the good news. Well,
Amen.
thank you. Amen. And Brian, you want to send us out? Thank you for putting the book together. Thank you for inviting Catherine and others to be a part of this amazing book. If you don't have it, folks, I encourage you to order it. Brian, you send us out.
Well, Roger and Beth, thank you both, for putting this together. And Catherine, my goodness, I mean, talk about an hour's worth of wisdom. I mean, that was just like, I need to go listen to the whole thing again. You know what I mean? To try to assimilate it. But boy, I just so appreciate you taking the time to be with us. And obviously your contribution to the book, but most importantly, your lifelong contribution to God's kingdom. And you're such a great role model for all of us. I really
thank you.
Hope that more people can take advantage of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. I would ask people to visit our website and to subscribe to it. We are on a campaign to build our database because that's important. But the most important thing is for all of us to remember that we're just trying to get our own selves out of prison. That's all.
Really?
That's it. We're just trying. As Howard Thurman said, we're just trying to get ourselves out of prison. And that's what I've been doing all my life. I want to be liberated. I want to be free. And I'm willing to tell people about that journey. And it's good.
Amen.
Thank you. Amen. And thank you again, everybody, for joining in today. I encourage you to check out next month. Bethany, do you know who's next or what's next?
Yes, and I'd like to really thank Catherine for sharing all of your wisdom. Roger, thank you for that interview. And next month, stay tuned. We'll be having Kyle Norman interviewing Shane Claiborne. So we're just looking forward to more learning and more healing.
Yeah.
So everyone have a good afternoon, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
And thank you all.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks, everybody.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.